In today's video, we'll look at how to write your literature review as part of your thesis requirement. The first thing is that what at all is literature review? When we talk about literature review, it is a comprehensive overview of all existing knowledge on a specific topic of a research area. It allows you as a researcher to identify certain relevant theories that exist, methods that have been used so far, and the gaps that exist in research. And this directs you to be able to write your thesis. And that is why every research that is conducted needs to have a literature review as part of the various sections. Okay, now let's dig right in. What are the stages in conducting a literature review? Now, the first stage we want to look at is for you to be able to demonstrate the knowledge of a specific research topic. Now, you want to conduct a study in a particular study area. You want to demonstrate your knowledge of the research topic to know how in-depth knowledge you have concerning this particular research area. And you use the literature review in order to be able to expand your knowledge in the research topic you are conducting. The second stage of your literature review is to be able to identify the gaps that exist in literature and how your research links to these gaps. Obviously, every research that has been conducted would have one gap or the other which your study will seek to fill. And so through your literature review, you are able to identify the gaps that exist in those literature and how your research study links those gaps together. Now, the third and final stage of your literature review is to be able to give a foundation of your conceptual framework. And this part is optional. Certain studies may require you to have a conceptual framework, others may not. Now that we have identified the stages that are in conducting a literature review, we want to get started. The first thing that I want you to take note of is that the literature review has 3 sections. Basically, it starts with the introduction, it continues with the body, and it finalizes with the conclusion, all in this same section. Now, the introduction is the section where you will introduce the organization and the purpose of this particular chapter. And so you want to introduce what this chapter is about, and you also want to be able to give out the organization or the layout of the chapter. Now, secondly, in this introductory section, you also want to outline your topic with explanation of certain terminologies that exist. And this is so important. And those terminologies could be subgrouped or could be under subtopics. So, for instance, your study is on type 2 diabetes. You could take some time to give us a background information about type 2 diabetes, how it comes about, the pathophysiology of type 2 diabetes. Or maybe you talk about the treatment options that are available for type 2 diabetes. This is you giving an in-depth knowledge, just like we talked about in the various stages of the literature review, giving this in-depth knowledge about this topic or about the research area. And this is the introduction part of your literature review, and it is important. Now, the second section is the body section, and this is the most important part of your literature review. This is where you are going to present, analyze, evaluate, and synthesize all the existing literature that are relevant to your topic or that are relevant to your research area. So you are going to get a body of knowledge from research that have been conducted, and you're going to integrate them into your study. Now, there are 3 ways in which you can go about this. You can either use a chronological way of presenting existing literature, or using a thematic-based approach, or using a methodological-based approach. You don't have to use all these 3 in the same literature review conduction. So when we talk about chronological, you could use your study, or you could search for studies, or you could integrate studies that start from a particular date, from the late to the present. Now, the idea behind this is to help you to understand what has been done so far, right from the onset up to the current state right now. It gives you the trend of the issues of concern as far as the research area is concerned, and you are able to identify the gaps where certain additions needs to be made as far as your research area is concerned. Now, if you want to use the thematic based approach, then probably you are using a particular theme, or you are using your research objectives or your research questions as the theme, and you will look for studies that have been done concerning each theme that you will use, or which each theme that you are going to base your research on. And so, in this particular type of approach, you are not necessarily interested in current studies that have been done or previous studies that have been done. You are just interested in the objectives, in the things that comes out of your research questions or your research objectives. And that is one way of integrating existing literature in your literature review. And the methodological approach is that you are interested in the way the studies were conducted. Were they conducted quantitatively, qualitatively, or using a mixed method approach? So the reason why anybody would choose this particular approach in writing their literature review is to be able to critique the way the studies were conducted. And so if the study used a qualitative approach, probably that is the reason why they were not able to sample a whole lot of participants, and so any type of assertion that is made is not conclusive. And so probably a qualitative or a quantitative study or a mixed method approach needs to be done. So you are looking for the approach that the studies were done, and you go for the methodological based approach in selecting studies or in integrating studies in your literature review. Okay, so all these sections fit into the body section, and that is where the junk of your literature review would be. So I want to advise that if you are going to use 25 pages or 20 pages or 10 pages for your entire literature review section, then about seven of the pages, that is if it is 10 pages, or 15 of the pages if it is 20 pages, should be for the body section. That is, the junk of your literature review should concentrate on the body section. That is what literature review is actually about. You are trying to review existing literature, and so you don't want to spend so much time giving us a body of knowledge on your research topic and giving us a very little information about studies that have been conducted on that particular area. Now, once you've been able to do this, the last section of your literature review is the conclusion section. And this is where you pull all the pieces together. You give a summary of the key findings that have been done. So all the literature that you have reviewed in your study, what are the key findings that you identified? And you highlight on the gaps that you identified. And as you are highlighting them, it is giving you the leverage for you to be able to continue with your study. Now, moreover, the last aspect of your conclusion, as far as the literature review is concerned, is your conceptual framework, provided it is required in your thesis. This is the section you are going to put your conceptual framework as part of your literature review. Remember that before that, you've already given the theoretical underpinnings of your work, and you will expand your conceptual framework in this section if it is required. With this, we come to the end of this video. Now, what I want you to take home is that in doing this particular exercise, you need to have a referencing tool. I wish you all the best in conducting your literature review. And now I believe you are equipped with all the tools you need in writing your literature review.